Good afternoon, Craig Lapsley at the State Control Centre to do the afternoon briefing for what will be a number of days of very hot weather across Victoria. Now with me today is Andrew Tupper from the Bureau of Meteorology and Charles Guest, who is the Victoria's Chief Health Officer, and we'll do our best to give you the latest information on what Victoria will experience. Obviously heat brings the risk of heat, brings the risk of fire, brings the issue around water safety, and hopefully we'll be able to cover those off for you today. So over to Andrew.
Thanks everybody. So a couple of weeks ago we had a short, sharp, hot spell followed by a cool change. This event's a little bit different to that. It's going to be nearly as hot or as hot, but the spell is lasting a bit longer and the change isn't going to go through all of Victoria. So it's hot in Melbourne today. Tomorrow we're actually putting the Melbourne forecast up to 42 degrees, followed by a weakish change coming through in the mid to late afternoon. The temperature is going to drop around about 10 degrees as that change goes through. It's not as strong a cool change as we had a couple of weeks ago, and it's not going to be as far-reaching. So in the rest of Victoria, in southern Victoria, that change will slowly come through, but in northern Victoria it's pretty much going to stay hot. So Mildura, for example, will be low to mid-40s right through the weekend and then maybe dropping into the high 30s early next week. So it's an extended spell of heat. Southern Victoria gets the couple of days of heat and then a bit of a change. The other difference is that we're not really expecting much in the way of rain. There might be a little bit of rain in eastern Victoria, but in general, not much rain as the change comes through. And also during the weekend, starting in the northwest and then more generally over the weekend, there's going to be a risk of dry lightning, so lightning that happens but without rain reaching the ground. So it's going to be dry, hot and a change in the south, but the change isn't really going to be helping things much in the north, so more of an extended hot period in the north. I might leave it there and pass over to Charles.
Good afternoon. Very hot weather can make people sick. We recognise heat exhaustion as one of the possible effects of very hot weather. That's most obvious when people are sweating profusely and feeling unwell. And if you are in any doubt about how somebody is doing, seek medical advice. There's lots of advice out there to help you help somebody else with heat exhaustion. There's the Better Health channel. There's, of course, your GP. And if in serious concern, dial 000 without delay. So that's the effects of heat. Then how to prevent it. That's what we're trying to do now by bringing you this information. The first thing, so obvious, stay cool. Drink plenty of water, even if you're not thirsty. Have a plan for the day. Find places that are cool to go to. If you don't have air conditioning in your own home, find it. There are places such as shopping malls, cinemas, etc., where you can have air conditioning for free. Look in on others, help other people. That's something we hope you'll do every day of the year, but particularly the very old and the very young, susceptible to heat exhaustion, don't always recognise that they have it and may need help acutely. The last thing I'll mention is leaving people in parked cars. We know that doing that, leaving people in parked cars, is a very dangerous practice. Already today we've had reports of 9 children left in parked cars. That's 9 too many. We know that leaving children in parked cars can lead to death. I'm glad to say that hasn't happened this summer so far, but let us not have any deaths from kids in parked cars during the heat. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Charles. Thanks, Andrew. Obviously, you've heard the forecast and you've heard the potential of what it does for heat. So already today we've seen 10 grass and bushfires be attended to by our fire authorities. The most significant of that, or the most serious, is one that's at Mumbanna, and Mumbanna is on the South Australian border between Dartmoor and Mount Gambier. Being responded to by Victorian Resources and also South Australia, and major aircraft are on that fire. The warning that was issued was an emergency warning in the initial stages, and that will be reassessed as the fire progresses. And the reason it was issued at that highest level was it had houses in its direct path within minutes of it starting. So from that, the fire risk is real, and the fire risk only gets worse with the fact that there is no respite across the state tonight with heat. It will be potentially 30 degrees at midnight in Melbourne. So that's a hot night, and obviously a hot night leads to the starting point for Friday to start hot and get very hot by the forecast with stronger winds and dry conditions. So the fire risk is significant in central and western Victoria, but does reach across the state. From that, obviously all fire resources are on. The water safety message is important. We've already had a number of people being rescued or supported in our beaches already on Thursday, today, and obviously people will be in the beaches over the next few days, so that's important. The heat health alerts have been issued by the Chief Health Officer, and obviously that is a precautionary readiness trigger for the community to ensure that they are doing everything they need to do to withstand the heat, look after themselves, and in a readiness stage, be proactive. Now from that, obviously we see the next few days as very serious. It is a different day than the 6th of January, the Saturday only weeks ago. The wind is not as strong, but the temperatures stay higher for longer. The environment will be extremely dry, and we've got an unstable environment, which means if a fire does start, it doesn't rely on wind alone to push it along. The atmospheric conditions will see that it will be able to move through the environment very successfully and with intensity. So obviously the key thing is not to light fires. Total fire bans are in place in 5 districts, and that may change as the forecast is increased or may be increased. So I think the important thing for Victorians is stay attuned to your local conditions. If you're travelling, have a plan about where you're travelling to, understand you're moving through parts of Victoria, and we always say stay attuned to where you get the best information. The Bureau website is obviously with the radar and the latest weather information, but also Vic Emergency website and the Vic Emergency app are 2 locations where all that information can be accessed. I may leave it there and just ask for questions.
Craig, given the conditions, should people be considering their travel over the weekend?
Most certainly. To consider where you are and what you're doing over the next few days, so it's not just the weekend. Friday is the critical day but reaches into the weekend, is a good thing to do. So planning your travel, planning where you will be, planning the time you travel, and in particular think about the hottest part of the day. But also remember that we'll see Friday morning be very hot across the state. So it's not starting from a cool base when you've got 30 degrees at midnight and dropping back to about 25 degrees at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So the day will start hot, it will continue hot, and obviously planning yourself through Friday, and particularly in the northern parts of the state, to plan for Saturday and Sunday will be important.
Where are the most high-risk parts for the state of fire? Where are you most concerned about?
Well, the highest risk is central and western Victoria, but tomorrow afternoon, with the forecast that's been put, central Victoria will be an absolute key point. And I say that in the sense that we'll have the hottest part of the day, we'll have the driest conditions, we'll have the strongest winds during that period, the afternoon of Friday, and the wind change will move through central Victoria in the afternoon. So the most critical part in a fire scenario will certainly be central Victoria on Friday afternoon. Other questions?
Can you tell us more about the Mumbanna fire that's currently still out of control?
So Mumbanna is a small rural community to the west of Dartmoor in Western Victoria. It sits close to the South Australian border, Mumbanna, It would be forested areas, both private and public forest, and also grasslands. At this stage, it's been freely moving through the environment for over an hour and still listed as out of control, and that's why the emergency warning was issued, because it had houses directly in front of it. And only small numbers of houses, but houses were directly in front. Farm communities that have been warned about a fire in their environment. They believe, the fire controllers believe, they will get a hold of it this afternoon with the amount of resource, both on-ground resources and aircraft. But it's a fire that at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the hottest part of the day, is the fire of concern. And obviously South Australian and Victorian resources have responded to it. There is another fire that's been reported to the south of that in the Glenelg National Park, and South Australian resources are responding to that. What it's telling us, though, clearly, that this is not the hottest or the driest part of the 2 days. So Friday is hotter, Friday will be drier, Friday will be windier, and we're already seeing fires on Thursday run through the environment. And the first grass fire reported was at 8 o'clock this morning and took a fairly strong hold. So in that sense, the conditions are dry. And I suppose we've been saying it across Victoria, we have had rain. You know, back before Christmas we had significant rain. We have had rain in the early parts of January, but the condition is burning the moisture off in the fuels and returning the fuels to be available to burn readily, freely and with intensity.
There's plantations out that way. Are there fires near those at all?
There would be plantation involved in these, and there would be plantation under risk. So southwestern Victoria is one of the most significant parts of Australia to have plantations that are planted for harvesting and therefore sale on an international market. So the southwestern corner is the green triangle of plantations and reaches back into South Australia, and obviously the communities down there in the southwest and also the fire brigades are attuned to that issue.
What other fires are burning at the moment?
No, they're the only two. We have had other fires that obviously were brought under control very quickly, and one of those was near Drysdale on the Bellarine Peninsula, and that was, just as I walked in, brought under control. So there has been success today, and I always say, you think about a firefighter on the back of a fire truck when it's in the high 30s heading into the 40s. It's a difficult job, so our career and volunteer firefighters do a fantastic job. And as we've always said in the state, we support them with great aircraft, and we've got the large air tankers in the sky, we've got the orange cranes in the sky, and we've got smaller aircraft responding. So significant aircraft resources have been out supporting the ground firefighters this afternoon.